Hollywood didn't protect the people in front of its cameras. It protected the production. Stars showed up sick, dying, and barely standing, because the machine kept rolling regardless of what it cost them physically. Carolyn Jones performed scenes from a wheelchair, while colon cancer spread through her body. Ingrid Bergman had her swollen arm elevated through the night, just so she could lift it on cue the next day. Tyrone Power dropped his sword mid-fight, turned blue under his stage makeup, and was dead within minutes. These weren't isolated tragedies. This was the system working exactly as designed. Jean Harlow was visibly unwell during filming on Saratoga, shooting a scene where her character was supposed to have a fever. That detail wasn't a stretch. Her face had gone gray, her body was swelling with fluid, and between takes, she leaned against Gable and told him, "I feel terrible. Get me back to my dressing room." The studio doctor called it influenza and a gallbladder problem. It was neither. Harlow's kidneys were shutting down. She was experiencing nausea, abdominal pain, crushing fatigue, fluid retention, and uremia, a toxic buildup of waste in the bloodstream. When Gable visited her at home, she was badly bloated, and her breath carried the unmistakable smell that comes with advanced kidney failure. She checked into Good Samaritan Hospital on the 6th of June, 1937, fell into a coma, and died the following morning. She was 26 years old. MGM finished Saratoga anyway, using Mary Dees as a body double, keeping her hidden under hats or shot from behind, while Paula Winslow recorded the dialogue Harlow never got to speak. Marilyn Monroe walked into Something's Got to Give, already carrying acute sinusitis, a fever, and a respiratory infection serious enough that her doctors pushed for production to be delayed. Fox started shooting on the 23rd of April, 1962, without her. Over the first 6 weeks, she was confined to bed repeatedly, submitted medical certificates, and only came in on the days she was physically able. She made it to set on April 30th, but couldn't get through a full day. When she came back in May, the crew had to build scenes around whatever brief windows of energy she had, including the famous pool sequence that was photographed for publicity. The studio's response was to suggest she was faking it, even after medical exams confirmed the illness was real. On June 4th, producer Henry Weinstein offered to personally drive her to set. She was too sick to leave the house. Fox fired her 4 days later and filed a $750,000 lawsuit against her. Out of 32 scheduled working days, Monroe had shown up for 12 and delivered just 7.5 minutes of usable footage. Carolyn Jones was diagnosed with colon cancer in 1982, the same year she joined Capitol as Myrna Clegg. The cancer came back after treatment and moved into her liver and stomach, leaving her in serious pain and too weak most days to stand through a full scene. She played many of those scenes from a wheelchair, then pushed herself back in front of the cameras whenever her body gave her enough to work with. She told her colleagues she was being treated for ulcers. Nobody on set knew about the cancer. Chemotherapy took her hair, so she wore a lace and ribbon cap when she wasn't filming, and wigs when she was. Marla Adams stepped in during her absences, but Jones came back and finished the entire first season. Her health kept declining, and she stepped away from the series in 1983. That July, she slipped into a coma at her West Hollywood home. She passed away there on August 3rd, with Peter Bailey Britton at her side. 4. Tyrone Power, Solomon, and Sheba. On the 15th of November, 1958, Tyrone Power collapsed on a Madrid set while shooting a sword fight for Solomon and Sheba. He and George Sanders had already run through the duel multiple times when Power dropped his sword, said his left arm was hurting, and told the crew he couldn't go on. They got him to his dressing room and poured him some brandy. Sanders found him slumped sideways in a chair, clutching his arm, his face gone bluish under the stage makeup. Power managed to smile and told everyone he'd be fine. Within minutes, he wasn't. The crew carried him out and rushed him toward a hospital in Madrid, but he died before doctors ever got the chance. He was 44 years old and had completed roughly 2/3 of the film. Yul Brynner stepped in to replace him. Most of the picture was reshot, and only a few distant battle shots featuring Power made it into the final cut. 5. Clark Gable. The Misfits. Clark Gable came to the Misfits already carrying less weight than usual after slimming down before production. Out in Nevada, the 59-year-old chain smoker pushed through temperatures pushing 100 degrees, long idle stretches, rough horsework, and a grueling Mustang roundup on a baked, dry lake bed. Stuntmen took the worst of the physical punishment, but Gable still spent weeks riding, roping, and baking in the sun as the schedule crept 3 weeks past its planned end date. His contract guaranteed him $48,000 for every week the production ran over. Principal photography wrapped on the 4th of November, 1960. Just 2 days after that, Gable felt a crushing pain in his chest at his Encino home and was rushed to Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital with a coronary thrombosis. For 10 days, he seemed to be getting better. On November 16th, he had dinner with his pregnant wife, sat up in bed, laid his head back against the pillow, and died. 6. Rita Hayworth, The Wrath of God. While shooting The Wrath of God in Mexico in 1971, Rita Hayworth couldn't hold on to 4 words. In a church scene, Frank Langella's line to her was, "Why are you here?" Her reply was simply, "Because God is here." But take after take, she lost it. A crewman eventually stretched out on the floor at her feet and whispered the line up to her. She repeated it, and the crew clapped. She smiled back, unaware that some of them were laughing at her. For the rest of the shoot, oversized cue cards sat propped next to the camera at all times. Robert Mitchum and Langella helped walk her to the set each morning, while makeup artist Lynn Del Cale would take her aside, feed her one line, send her out to film it, then bring her back for the next. Everyone wrote off her struggles as drinking and nerves. Hayworth got through the film one sentence at a time. Henry Fonda was 75 years old and running on a pacemaker when he showed up to film on Golden Pond. Chronic heart disease had already taken a serious toll, and the cold New Hampshire location made every day on set a calculated risk. The crew watched him closely, but the water scenes were another matter entirely. For the boat crash sequence, Fonda and Doug McKeon pulled on wetsuits under their costumes and held onto rocks in frigid September water. Then, during another take, a speedboat cut past their canoe with enough force to flip it, sending both Fonda and Katharine Hepburn into the lake. Crew members waded in immediately, pulled Fonda out, and had him wrapped in blankets before anyone talked about going again. He finished the film, but his body gave out not long after. Too sick to attend the premiere or the Academy Awards, he stayed home while Jane accepted his Oscar. He died of heart disease 5 months later, on the 12th of August, 1982. Humphrey Bogart walked onto the set of The Harder They Fall in late 1955 with esophageal cancer that hadn't been diagnosed yet. He came in at 9 every morning and worked straight through until 6, grinding through a persistent cough, exhaustion, and pain severe enough to make his eyes water during close-ups. Nobody on set understood what they were actually seeing. One afternoon, Rod Steiger found him still sitting alone on the Columbia lot long after his scenes were done. Bogart told him the crew needed to reshoot his close-ups because his eyes looked too watery. Steiger figured it was simple irritation, and only later realized Bogart had been quietly enduring real physical suffering the entire time. The film wrapped, but by January 1956 Bogart couldn't push through it anymore. Surgeons removed his esophagus, 2 lymph nodes, and 1 rib on March 1st. The cancer kept spreading until he couldn't manage the stairs, and a dumbwaiter had to be converted to carry him between floors in his wheelchair. Elizabeth Montgomery spent the final weeks of production on Deadline for Murder, pushing through abdominal pain, exhaustion, and symptoms she refused to look into. She worked through location shoots and long dialogue scenes in late March 1995, losing weight and growing visibly weaker as the days went on. When she got home, Robert Foxworth took one look at her and told her something was seriously wrong. She insisted she was fine. A week later, her doctor sent her straight to a specialist. The diagnosis was stage 4 colorectal cancer, already spread to her liver and lungs. Surgery followed within days, but it couldn't stop it. Montgomery turned down prolonged hospital care and went home to Beverly Hills. Deadline for Murder aired on May 9th, and she appeared composed and professional as reporter Edna Buchanan. 9 days later, she died at home, with Foxworth and her 3 children by her side. Edward G. Robinson was dying of bladder cancer during the production of Soylent Green, and almost no one on set had any idea. He was 79 years old, nearly deaf, and relied on cast members speaking directly into his ear between takes. Charlton Heston later wrote that Robinson never missed a single hour of work, never showed up late, and never let the illness bleed into his performance. His last day in front of a camera was the scene where Saul Roth undergoes assisted death. Robinson lay back on a white bed as images of forests, deer, open oceans, and wildflowers played across the chamber walls. Heston stood on the other side of the glass watching, and he cried. Robinson turned and asked him, "Can you see it?" Robinson knew this was his final scene. Heston still didn't know his co-star was dying. Robinson passed away on the 26th of January 1973, before Soylent Green ever reached theaters. Kendall filmed once more, with Feeling in Paris, while she was dying of myelocytic leukemia, and she had no idea that's what it was. Her doctors and her husband, Rex Harrison, told her she was dealing with an iron deficiency. In reality, the leukemia was driving the increasing weakness and the fevers that kept climbing. Production got underway in Paris in April 1959, and many of her scenes were shot while Kendall was running a temperature. She pushed through long dialogue passages, wardrobe changes, and physical comedy alongside Yul Brynner without complaint. She finished the picture roughly 2 months before she died. Near the end of the film, Kendall's character watches Brynner conduct the Stars and Stripes Forever, and her eyes fill with tears. As she walks out of the concert hall, she turns back and blows him a kiss. Kendall checked into the London clinic not long after, and died there on the 6th of September 1959. Boris Karloff shot targets while battling severe emphysema and arthritis, so debilitating that he depended on an oxygen mask and a wheelchair just to get through the day. He was 80 years old, and only half of one lung was still functioning properly. Crew members would help him up, pull the mask away, and walk him to his mark with a cane. The moment the camera cut, he sat back down. Roger Corman had originally locked in just 2 days of Karloff's time, but the role of Byron Orlock grew into one of the film's central threads. Karloff delivered his 100-second appointment in Samara monologue in a single unbroken take. The climax put even more on him. At a drive-in theater, Orlock walks straight toward an armed gunman as a bullet grazes his forehead. Karloff keeps moving, raises the same cane he needed just to stand, knocks the pistol out of the man's hand, and slaps him into submission. Robert Donat was in serious physical decline when he took on the Inn of the Sixth Happiness in 1958. Chronic severe asthma left him struggling for breath and forced him to rest between nearly every take. Director Mark Robson watched Donat reach what appeared to be total collapse during one particularly grueling day on set. The following morning, Donat walked back through the studio doors and kept going. While shooting the film, Donat suffered a stroke, recovered enough to return to set, and pushed through his remaining scenes with Ingrid Bergman. His last sequence called for the Mandarin to announce his conversion and walk away from the city for good. Donat delivered the farewell line, "We shall not see each other again, I think. Farewell." And Bergman broke into tears on the spot. Shortly after that, doctors found a large brain tumor. Donat died of cerebral thrombosis on the 9th of June 1958, before the picture ever reached theaters. 14. Rock Hudson, Dynasty. Rock Hudson was already living with AIDS when he came aboard Dynasty in December 1984. He'd been diagnosed 6 months before, after doctors spotted a lesion on his neck, and he kept it completely hidden from the cast and the studio. As filming went on, he dropped weight. His speech started to slip, and his long habit of leaning on cue cards became harder to ignore. His declining health forced the writers to cut his storyline short and kill the character off-screen. The hardest scene to shoot required Hudson to kiss Linda Evans. He sprayed his mouth, rinsed with mouthwash again and again, and fought back the push for a more passionate take, landing only a brief closed-mouth kiss. Evans had no idea why. When it was done, Hudson walked back to his dressing room and told his secretary the kiss was finished. He died on the 2nd of October, 1985. 15. Bela Lugosi, Bride of the Monster. Lugosi was self-injecting morphine to get through production on Bride of the Monster in 1955. Severe sciatica left him in unrelenting pain, and actor Paul Marcos recalled that Lugosi called the injections his medicine. Even so, he refused cue cards and delivered the long "I have no home" speech entirely from memory, drawing spontaneous applause from the crew. For the climactic octopus fight, Eddie Wood cut between Lugosi's close-ups and body doubles, wrestling a motionless rubber prop in the shallow water at Griffith Park. Shortly after production wrapped, Lugosi voluntarily checked himself into Los Angeles General Hospital for treatment. He told reporters he'd been relying on morphine and methadone for years just to manage the pain. 16. Ingrid Bergman, A Woman Called Golda. Bergman was in the final stage of breast cancer when she filmed A Woman Called Golda in late 1981. The disease had spread. She was losing weight and strength quickly, and surgery had left her right arm badly swollen with lymphedema. No studio would insure her, yet she showed up to set every single day and worked through 9 weeks of shooting across Israel and London. Heavy makeup, long speeches, and repeated costume changes kept coming while she was frequently ill. One of Golda Meir's signature gestures required both arms to lift, but Bergman could no longer raise the damaged arm properly. During production, her swollen arm was propped up through the night so enough fluid could drain out, giving her just enough mobility to lift it on camera the next morning. She wrapped the film and made her way back to London, where she died on the 29th of August 1982, her 67th birthday. 17. John Cazale, The Deer Hunter. John Cazale was deep into advanced lung cancer when production began on The Deer Hunter, his strength dropping week by week. The studio declared him uninsurable and pushed to have him replaced. Director Michael Cimino refused to let that happen, restructuring the entire shoot so every one of Cazale's scenes was filmed first. Meryl Streep signed on to play Linda, primarily to stay by his side, keeping close between takes as his health continued to slip. Robert De Niro personally covered the extra insurance premium needed to keep Cazale in the cast. Despite being visibly frail and thin, Cazale pushed through Stan's wedding sequences, the bar scenes, and the final confrontation inside the hunting cabin. Once his scenes were done, he left for New York to continue treatment while the crew moved on to Thailand. He never got to see the completed film. Cazale died on the 13th of March, 1978, with Streep at his bedside in the hospital, 9 months before The Deer Hunter reached theaters. 18. Spencer Tracy, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Spencer Tracy was already in serious physical decline when production started on Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in January 1967. Heart disease, diabetes, and years of respiratory problems had made him completely uninsurable. Stanley Kramer and Katharine Hepburn each placed their salaries in escrow as a safeguard in case he didn't survive long enough to finish the picture. Tracy worked a shortened day, arriving at 9 in the morning and stopping at noon. Hepburn drove him to the studio each day, helped him run his lines, and watched closely as his condition shifted from one morning to the next. When the camera turned to another actor for close-ups, a stand-in took Tracy's spot so he could get off his feet and rest. Some mornings he was sharp and ready. Others, he simply couldn't function. 3 days before the end of filming, Tracy read through the script and quietly told Kramer that enough footage existed to cut a releasable film if he died that night. He delivered his final speech on May 24th. 17 days later, Hepburn heard a cup drop in his kitchen followed by a heavy thud. 19. Patrick Swayze. The Beast. Patrick Swayze was filming the TV series The Beast with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, scheduling his chemotherapy sessions around production days. After getting through the pilot, he developed a severe burning pain in his abdomen. Doctors discovered a blocked bile duct, and the cancer was formally diagnosed in January 2008. That summer, he returned to Chicago for the full 13-episode season, regularly putting in 12-hour days on set while still receiving chemotherapy. He grew visibly gaunt as the weeks passed, but he stayed in the lead role through fight sequences, chase scenes, and location shoots. Travis Fimmel recalled that Swayze refused to hand off his stunts to doubles, insisting on doing the work himself. Producers built the production schedule around his condition, constantly monitoring whether he had the strength to continue. He missed very little time. Swayze completed all 13 episodes in November 2008, then stepped away from the production to return to treatment. Number 20. Buster Keaton, in A Funny Thing Happened, on the way to the Forum. By the time production began in Spain in 1965, Keaton was already dying. He just didn't know it. At 70 years old, he was quietly being eaten away by lung cancer that hadn't been diagnosed yet, and the long-running sequences the film required were simply beyond what his body could take. Director Richard Lester brought in stuntman Mick Dillon to handle the distance shots, stepping in wherever Keaton's strength gave out. But Keaton wasn't about to let anyone else own his moments. He held onto his timing, refused to hand off the final pratfall, and when the climactic chase arrived, he let Dillon run the long stretch toward the tree. Then the camera moved in close, and Keaton took over. He hit the trunk, went rigid, and dropped flat onto his back. The 70-year-old did that himself, on camera, no safety net. Filming wrapped in November. That January, doctors finally identified the lung cancer, though Keaton was told it was severe bronchitis and that he'd be fine. He died on the 1st of February 1966, 8 months before the film ever opened in theaters. He never knew the truth, and yet he still performed his own fall. If you've made it this far through the full list, thank you genuinely. That means everything. Drop your favorite entry in the comments, and if you want more stories like these from classic Hollywood, subscribe and stick around. See you in the next one.